The great market of Turok Prime was never silent. It was a place where ships from 1,000 stars landed, where traders shouted, and where creatures of every shape pushed through the narrow streets. It was a place of buying and selling, of greed and profit. But on this day, the loudest sound came from the auction square, where living beings were being sold. The crowd gathered in a circle around the cage. Some were tall insect-like creatures with sharp arms. Others were fat and slimy, their mouths dripping with green saliva. A few were covered in metal armor, eyes glowing red. Each one carried money ready to buy whatever the auctioneer presented. The auctioneer, a four-armed reptilian, raised his voice above the noise. "Next," he shouted. His long tongue flicked out, wet with greed. Guards pulled forward two young figures. They were thin, fragile, and very different from the usual slaves that filled the cages. Gasps and laughter rose from the crowd. "They are too soft," hissed a scaled alien. "They will break before any work is done," grunted a giant beast. "Too wild. Look at the eyes of that one." "Dangerous but useless," said another voice. The two sisters stood close together. Their skin glowed faintly like pale light under shadow. One looked gentle, with eyes that seemed too soft for this cruel world. She kept her head down, silent. The other stood taller, her eyes bright and fierce like a wild animal that refused to bow. But to the crowd they were nothing. No muscle, no armor, no claws. They were not soldiers, not workers, not machines. What use could they have? The auctioneer slammed his staff against the stage. 2 for 1. A rare pair found on the edge of the Orion Belt. No one else has seen their kind before. A mystery. A treasure. His voice tried to make them valuable, but the crowd only laughed. "No one will buy them," someone shouted. "Worthless," another agreed. "Send them back to the mines, or throw them to the pits." The sisters pressed closer together. For a moment the gentle one trembled. The fierce one glared at the crowd with silent rage. And then, quietly but clear, a human voice spoke. "I will take them." The crowd turned. A tall man stepped forward. His coat was worn, his boots scratched from many journeys. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, watching every detail. He was human, a rare sight in this part of the galaxy. The auctioneer blinked. "You, human? You wish to buy these too?" The man nodded once. "Yes." The marketplace froze for a heartbeat, then burst into laughter. "He is mad. Humans are fools. He cannot see they are useless. He wastes his money." But the man did not laugh. His name was Captain Joran. For years he had traveled the galaxy, seeing things that others ignored, surviving dangers that killed stronger men. He looked at the two sisters, and where others saw weakness, he saw something else. Their eyes held secrets. Their silence hid strength. He could not explain it, but he felt it. "How much?" Joran asked. The auctioneer narrowed his eyes. "For you? Cheap. Nobody else wants them. 10 credits for both." Joran placed a small bag of coins on the platform. The sound of metal filled the air. The auctioneer snatched it up quickly. "Foolish human," shouted one of the armored beasts. "You waste your gold." Joran ignored them. The cage door opened. The guards shoved the sisters forward, and they stumbled into the light. They looked at Joran, confused, unsure if this man was a savior or another master. Joran bent slightly, speaking softly. "You are safe now. Follow me." The gentle one lowered her head again, but her shoulders relaxed a little. The fierce one still stared, testing him with her eyes, searching for lies. But Joran only turned, walking back toward the docks. Slowly the sisters followed. Behind them, the crowd still laughed. "He will regret it," they shouted. "Those girls will bring him nothing but trouble." Yet even as they laughed, a strange unease passed through the market. For reasons they could not explain, some felt a chill as they watched the human and the sisters leave. Joran walked through the busy streets, the sisters close behind. He could feel the weight of many eyes on him, some mocking, some curious, some dangerous. But he did not care. He had seen something no one else saw. He did not yet know what it was. He did not know if it was hope or danger or destiny. But deep in his heart, he was certain of one thing. These two were not weak. These two were not worthless. These two would change everything. The market noise faded behind them, but the story had only begun. Captain Joran walked through the narrow streets of Turok Prime, the two sisters following behind him. The crowd had already forgotten them, busy with new trades and new shouts, but whispers still followed. "The human is mad. The girls are useless. He will regret this." The sisters walked close together, but they were not the same. The gentle one moved quietly, her eyes always low, her steps soft. The wild one's head turned sharply, scanning every corner, every shadow, as if she expected an attack at any moment. She looked more like a fighter, yet her thin body showed no strength. Duran led them to the docking bay, where his ship waited, a mid-sized freighter, old but strong, with scratches on its hull like scars from past battles. The sister stopped at the base of the ramp. "Go inside," Duran said. His voice was calm, steady, like someone used to giving orders but never raising his tone. The gentle sister obeyed, stepping lightly up the ramp. The wild one did not move. She stared at Duran, her sharp eyes glowing faintly under the docking lights. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was low, almost like a growl. Duran turned to her. "Why what?"
Why buy us?
"You saw the crowd. We are nothing. You wasted your money." For a moment, Duran did not answer. He studied her. He had seen many slaves before, broken, silent, hopeless. But these two were different. Even in fear, they held something the others did not. "I don't believe you are nothing," Duran said. "I don't know what you are, but I know what I saw in your eyes. The galaxy threw you aside, but I think it made a mistake." The wild sister narrowed her eyes. She wanted to argue, but something in his voice made her pause. It was not pity. It was not greed. It was something else. Something harder to understand. Slowly, she followed her sister up the ramp. Inside the ship, the air was cooler, quieter. The engines hummed deep below, ready to fly. The sisters sat on a bench near the wall. They stayed close, their shoulders almost touching like two sides of the same coin. Duran brought a tray of food, simple rations, water in clear cups, bread like cubes, and a bowl of warm broth. He set it down before them. The gentle one whispered, "Food." Her hands trembled as she lifted the cup. She sipped carefully as if she was afraid it would disappear. The wild one only stared at Duran. She did not touch the food. "You don't trust me," Duran said. "Why should I?" she replied sharply. "No one gives without reason. Not in this galaxy." Duran leaned against the wall, folding his arms. "You're right. Everyone wants something, but not everything is for chains. Sometimes it's for choice." The wild one tilted her head. "Choice? Yes, you will stay here until you decide what to do. Work with me or leave when you're ready. But until then, you are safe on this ship." The gentle sister looked up at him, her eyes wide, almost shining with tears. "Safe," she repeated softly, as if the word itself was new to her. The wild one frowned, but deep inside, a part of her wanted to believe him. That night, the ship rose from the docks. Engines roared and stars filled the windows as Turok Prime shrank into the distance. The sisters sat together in silence, watching the black sky. Duran sat in the pilot's seat, his hand steady on the controls. But his mind was not calm. He kept thinking of the strange feeling that struck him when he first saw them. It was not beauty, not weakness, it was something hidden, like a secret waiting to break free. He did not know if they were blessing or curse, but something inside told him this decision would change everything. Hours later, in the quiet of space, the sisters whispered to each other. The gentle one said, "Maybe he means it. Maybe he will not hurt us." The wild one shook her head. "No one is like that, not here. He wants something. Then why did he save us? I don't know, but I will find out." The wild one turned her sharp eyes toward the door of the cockpit, where Duran sat watching the stars. She felt a strange pull inside, part warning, part curiosity. She did not trust him, but she wanted to. Meanwhile, Duran sat alone, staring into the endless void. He thought of the crowd's laughter, of the whispers that called him a fool. Maybe they were right. Maybe he had wasted his money, but deep in his gut he knew the truth. He had not chosen them. Something deeper had chosen him. And that thought carried both fear and hope. The ship sailed into the dark, carrying 3 lives bound together by a decision no one understood yet. The galaxy would call it madness. The crowd would call it foolishness. But for Duran, it was only the beginning. The human had taken a risk. The sisters had found a chance, and destiny had begun its work. The storm was gone, but silence did not bring peace. The freighter drifted through calm space, its engines humming steady again, but the air inside the ship felt heavy. Duran sat in the pilot's chair, his hands loose on the controls, his mind replaying the impossible sight he had just witnessed. Two fragile sisters, mocked as worthless, had bent a storm of pure energy to their will. He had seen battles, seen machines tear planets apart, seen soldiers with weapons that could cut through steel, but never had he seen something like this. Behind him, the sisters sat together on the bench. The gentle one leaned weakly against her sister, her face pale but calm. The wild one held her close, eyes sharp and alert, still watching Joran as though daring him to make the wrong move. Joran finally turned. His voice was quiet. "You saved my ship. You saved my life." The gentle one lifted her eyes soft as moonlight. "We only wanted to live," the wild one added sharply. "Do not mistake it for loyalty. We saved ourselves." Joran gave a faint smile. "Fair enough. But whatever that was, it was more than survival. It was power." The wild one's eyes narrowed. "Power brings chains. That is why we hide it." Her words carried a weight Joran understood. In this galaxy, power was never free. If the wrong eyes saw what these two could do, armies would chase them, governments would fight for them, scientists would carve them open to learn their secrets. Joran leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Then you must trust me, because soon, others will know." The sisters said nothing, but the tension in their silence told him they understood. Hours passed. The ship continued its course deeper into the black. Joran moved through the ship, checking the systems, repairing what the storm had broken. Sparks and broken wires still hung from the ceiling. As he worked, the gentle sister stood and came closer. She raised her hand over a broken panel. "Wait." Joran started, but her soft fingers brushed the metal, and her eyes glowed faintly. A warm hum filled the air like the sound of a distant harp. The wires bent back into place. The sparks died. The panel lit up whole again. Joran stepped back in shock. "You can heal machines?" She lowered her hand, swaying slightly from weakness. "I do not heal, I sing, and the broken things listen." Joran's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. Later, when night came to the ship, Joran sat alone in the cockpit. The stars passed silently outside, endless and cold. He thought of the sisters, of their glow, their voices, their strange gifts. He whispered to himself, "What are you really? Where did you come from?" Behind him, the door slid open. The wild sister stepped inside. She leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp as ever. "You want answers," she said. "Yes," Joran replied. "So do we," she said coldly. "We do not know why we are like this. We only know it makes us hunted. Worlds fear what they cannot control." Her voice softened for just a moment. "We lost our people because of it." Joran turned in his chair, his face serious. "Then you are the last?" The wild one's eyes glimmered, but she said nothing. Silence was her answer. Before Joran could speak again, alarms rang through the ship. A red light flashed across the cockpit. "Incoming vessel," the computer warned. Joran's eyes narrowed. "Already?" On the screen, a shadow appeared. A ship, sleek and sharp, cutting through the dark like a predator. The wild sister's hands clenched. "Hunters," Joran cursed under his breath. "They must have tracked the auction." Word spreads fast. The comm system buzzed with a deep alien voice. "Human ship, power down. Hand over the cargo, hand over the girls, and you may live." Joran glanced at the wild sister. Her jaw was tight, her eyes full of fire. She did not look afraid, only ready. "No one takes us," she whispered. Joran stood, his hand hovering over the ship's weapons control. He looked at her, then at the stars, then back at the growing shadow on the screen. In that moment, he understood the truth. The sisters were not passengers. They were not slaves. They were a storm waiting to be unleashed, and the galaxy was already coming for them. The gentle sister appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "What will we do?" Joran's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of decision. "We fight." The sisters exchanged a glance. For the first time, they did not look alone. For the first time, someone stood beside them, not to chain them, not to sell them, but to protect them. The wild sister smiled, fierce and sharp. "Then let them come." The enemy ship drew closer, weapons charging. The freighter trembled as alarms screamed, but inside 3 hearts beat together now, bound by a choice that could not be undone. The gentle sister's gift of healing, the wild sister's gift of fury. and a human who chose to see their beauty when no one else did. Their hidden gift had been revealed, and now the galaxy would test them. The stars were silent, but the freighter shook as the enemy ship closed in. Sleek, black and sharp-edged, it moved like a predator in the dark. Its hull was marked with red scars of old battles, and its weapons glowed with deadly light. Inside Duran's cockpit, alarms blared. The screen filled with the shadow of the hunter vessel. The voice returned over comms, low and cold. Human ship. Power down. Hand over the girls. Refuse and you will be destroyed. The gentle sister stood frozen at the doorway, her soft hands gripping the wall. The wild sister stepped forward, her eyes blazing, her stance like a fighter ready to strike. They followed us, she hissed. They always follow. Duran's jaw tightened. He had known this would come, but not so soon. His ship was tough, but against hunters it was no war machine. He looked at the sisters. If I fight, we may not win. If I give you up, they might let me live. The wild one glared. So, will you sell us too? Duran met her sharp gaze without fear. No, I didn't take you from that market just to hand you to something worse. For a moment, the wild one studied him, searching for weakness. But she saw no lies. The enemy ship fired. A beam of red energy cut across the black sky, striking Duran's shields. The freighter shook hard, lights flickering. The gentle sister cried out, holding her head as if the sound itself hurt her. Duran's hands flew over the controls. Shields at 60%, hold on. The wild sister shouted, open the weapons. Duran glanced at her. My ship's guns won't pierce their armor. Then let us try. Duran hesitated, his mind racing. He had seen what they could do with storms and broken machines, but against a hunter ship? Could they really fight it? The gentle sister, still trembling, raised her head. Her eyes glowed faintly. We can help. Another blast shook the freighter, smoke rising from the ceiling. Duran clenched his teeth. There was no time for doubt. Then do it, he said. The sister stepped forward, standing in the center of the cockpit. The gentle one closed her eyes, humming a soft tone. Her voice carried through the ship like a wave of light. The broken system steadied, sparks died, and the engines roared with new life. The wild one raised her hands toward the viewing window. Her voice was not song, but fire, a sharp, powerful cry that echoed like thunder. Outside, the freighter's energy field twisted. The next hunter blast struck, but instead of breaking the shields, the energy bent, scattering like glass against stone. Duran's eyes widened. You're redirecting it, the wild one growled, sweat running down her face. Not for long. My strength burns fast. The hunter ship circled, confused by the sudden resistance. Then it fired again, this time with heavier power. The freighter rocked, but the sisters held. The gentle one sang louder, her voice trembling but strong. The wild one roared, forcing the energy aside. Together they turned defense into defiance. Duran seized the chance. He aimed the freighter's guns and fired. The blast struck the hunter's side, not enough to destroy, but enough to wound. Sparks flared across the enemy hull. Inside the hunter ship, anger rose. A second voice came through comms, filled with rage. Foolish human. Do you know what you carry? Those girls are not yours to protect. They are property of the syndicate. They belong to us. Duran's reply was steady, sharp as steel. They belong to no one. The wild sister gave him a quick look, fierce pride flashing in her eyes. But the hunters were not finished. Their ship released smaller crafts, black needle-like fighters that swarmed toward the freighter. Duran cursed. They're sending drones. Too many. The gentle sister whispered. I can hold the ship together, but not forever. The wild sister clenched her fists, her glow burning brighter. Then we burn with them. Duran slammed his hand on the console. No, we survive. We outthink them. He shifted the freighter sharply, diving through the asteroid field nearby. Massive rocks spun in the dark, glowing faintly from storm energy. The hunters followed, their smaller ships weaving between stone and shadow. The chase began. The freighter twisted between asteroids, engines roaring, shields straining under every hit. The sisters stood together in the cockpit, one soft voice singing life into the ship, the other roaring storms into the void. Duran pushed the controls to their limit, guiding them through narrow gaps, outsmarting the hunters with daring moves. But the hunters were skilled. They closed in, cutting off escape. The wild sister slammed her hand against the console. Let me strike them. Duran hesitated only a second, then nodded. Do it. The wild sister screamed, a raw primal cry. Outside, energy burst from the freighter like a wave of lightning. The nearest hunter drones shattered instantly, their metal shells breaking apart in the dark. The gentle sister gasped, her glow dimming. "Stop, your strength!" But the wild one stood tall, fire in her eyes. Better to burn than to bow. The enemy ship faltered, pulling back its drones. The comms went silent, only static hissing. For now, the freighter was alive. Duran sat back, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his forehead. His eyes shifted between the two sisters, one trembling from weakness, the other shaking from fury. He whispered almost to himself, "What are you?" The gentle sister whispered back, "A secret that should never be found." The wild one stared into the stars, her voice low and fierce, "And a storm that will never be chained." The freighter sailed deeper into the shadows of space. Victory was theirs, but Duran knew it was only the beginning. The hunters would not stop. The syndicate would not forget. The sisters were powerful, yes, but power always drew enemies, and now, every shadow in the galaxy would be watching. The freighter drifted in silence after the battle. The stars stretched endlessly, cold and bright, while broken pieces of the hunter drones floated behind them like the ashes of a burned fire. Inside, the ship smelled of smoke and scorched wires. Panels flickered. The air was heavy with exhaustion. Duran sat in the pilot's chair, his eyes sharp but tired. His hand still rested on the controls, though the fight was over. He glanced back at the sisters. The gentle one leaned weakly against the wall, her glow faint. The wild one stood guard at her side, her fierce eyes burning even in silence. For a moment, none of them spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engines. Finally, Duran rose from the chair. He walked toward the sisters, his step steady but slow. "You both saved this ship," he said quietly. "Without you, we'd be dead." The wild sister's eyes narrowed. "Do not mistake it. We fought for ourselves." Duran stopped in front of her, close enough to see the faint shimmer in her gaze. "No, you fought for more than that. You fought for her." He nodded toward the gentle sister. "And for me, too." The wild one's jaw tightened. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to keep the wall between them. But deep inside, she knew his words were true. The gentle sister lifted her head, her voice soft. "You stood with us. No one ever has before." Her words hung in the air, quiet but heavy. Duran crouched down so he was level with them. His face was calm, steady, like a man who had seen too much but still carried hope. "I don't know why the galaxy hunts you," he said. "I don't know where your power comes from. But I know one thing. I won't let them chain you again." The gentle sister's eyes filled with tears that did not fall. The wild one stared hard at him, searching, testing, trying to see if there was any crack in his words. She found none. For the first time, she lowered her gaze, not in weakness but in something almost like respect. Hours passed. They moved to the small mess hall of the ship. Duran set food on the table, more ration cubes, more simple broth. The gentle sister ate slowly, her strength returning little by little. The wild one barely touched hers, always watching the door, the shadows, the stars. Duran broke the silence. "Hunters won't stop. The syndicate will send more, stronger ones." The wild sister spoke coldly. "We know, that is our life. Always running, always hunted." "Not anymore," Duran said firmly. "Now we fight together." The gentle sister tilted her head. "Together?" The word sounded strange on her lips, but sweet. The wild one frowned. "Why risk your life for us? You gain nothing." Duran leaned back in his chair, his eyes locked on hers. "I gain truth. The galaxy sees you as weak, worthless. But I've seen what you really are. And maybe I believe in things others don't." The wild one scoffed, but it lacked sharpness. "Belief does not stop bullets." "No," Duran said. "But trust does, and I trust you." The gentle sister gasped softly. The wild one froze. No one had ever spoken those words to them. Not their people, not their captors, not even each other in such a way. Trust. That night, the freighter drifted in dark space, hiding from scanners. Duran sat in the cockpit watching for signs of pursuit. He barely noticed when the gentle sister walked in. She carried a blanket, still too shy to speak loudly. "You are tired," she said softly. Duran smiled faintly. "I've been tired for years." She placed the blanket over his shoulders. "You carry weight alone. You don't have to. Her touch was light, but the words heavier than any burden he had carried before. She left before he could answer. Later, the wild sister entered. She did not bring kindness. She brought warning. You speak of trust, she said, but trust is dangerous. People betray. People sell. People use. Joran looked at her, calm and unflinching. Maybe, but not me. She studied him again the way she always did, looking for weakness, for lies. But this time, instead of anger, she felt something else. Fear. Not fear of him, but fear of losing what she was starting to feel. You're strange, human, she said at last. Joran chuckled. I've been told that before. The next day, the alarms rang again. A ship passed in the distance, not hunters this time, but a syndicate patrol. Joran kept his ship hidden in the shadow of an asteroid, engines silent. The sisters stood close, ready to fight if needed. But the patrol moved on, not seeing them. When the danger passed, the gentle sister whispered, "Safe." The wild sister, for once, allowed herself a small smile. For now. Joran exhaled slowly, his tension easing. He looked at them both, standing together, ready to face whatever came. In that moment, he realized something. They were no longer passengers. They were no longer strangers. They were crew. The galaxy still hunted them. Shadows still waited. But inside the freighter, something new had been born. Not chains. Not fear. Trust. And with trust came strength. The freighter sailed through endless dark, a small spark against the sea of stars. Days had passed since the last hunter attack, but silence did not mean safety. Somewhere in the void, the syndicate still searched. Somewhere, shadows sharpened their claws. Yet inside the ship, something had changed. The sisters no longer sat apart from Joran. The gentle one smiled more often, her soft glow filling the halls like quiet light. The wild one still carried fire in her eyes, but it was no longer aimed only at him. It burned outward, ready to strike any threat that came close. And Joran, he no longer saw them as cargo or mystery or burden. He saw them as part of his crew, part of his life. One evening, while the freighter drifted near the ruins of a dead moon, Joran gathered them in the mess hall. He placed a small piece of metal on the table, shaped into a circle. The wild sister frowned. "What is that?" "A token," Joran said. "Something I give to crew who've saved my life. It means you belong here." The gentle sister touched the metal with trembling fingers. "Belong," she whispered, as if testing the word for the first time. The wild one's eyes narrowed. "You think a piece of scrap makes us part of you?" Joran met her gaze. "No, your choice does." The wild sister froze. No chains, no commands, only choice. Slowly she picked up the token. She didn't smile, but her grip tightened around it. But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. The ship's alarms screamed. On the radar, a massive shadow appeared, larger than the hunter ship before, armed with weapons that glowed like suns. The syndicate had found them again. The comms hissed. A cold voice spoke. "Human captain, you cannot hide forever. Hand over the sisters or we will tear your ship apart." The gentle sister shook, fear in her eyes. "They will not stop. They will never stop." The wild one clenched her fists. "Then we end this." Joran stood steady and unshaken. "We fight. But this time not just to survive. This time to show them the truth." The syndicate ship fired first. A blast of burning light struck the freighter, shields screaming. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Joran gripped the controls, forcing the ship into a sharp dive through asteroid debris. "Shields at 40%. Can't take much more." The gentle sister stumbled forward, her glow rising. She pressed her hands against the ship's wall, her soft song echoing through every wire, every circuit. The freighter shuddered, but then steadied, stronger, alive again. The wild sister stepped to the front window, her eyes burning like fire. She raised her hands high, her voice a raw cry of rage. Energy crackled outside the ship, building into a storm of light and fury. The syndicate ship fired again. But this time the blast split in two, bent away by her power. Joran fired the freighter's cannons, striking the enemy hull. Sparks erupted across its surface, but the syndicate ship was too strong, too vast. More blasts followed, shaking the freighter to its core. The gentle sister fell to her knees. "I can't hold much longer." Joran rushed to her side, helping her stand. "You don't have to alone." He turned to the wild one. "And you don't either." For the first time, Duran placed his hands on the console beside them. His voice was steady, full of belief. "We do this together." The sisters looked at him. One soft, one fierce. One glowing with quiet light, the other blazing with storm fire. For years, no one had stood with them. For years, they had been hunted, mocked, and chained. But now, a human stood between them, not as a master, not as a buyer, but as an ally. The gentle one began to sing again, her voice trembling but strong. The wild one roared, her cries sharper, louder, like thunder. And Duran added his voice, not song, not roar, but command. His hands guided the ship with precision, his eyes burning with faith. Together their power fused. Outside, the freighter blazed like a star. Shields glowed brighter than ever. Energy twisted, bent, and then exploded outward in a wave that shook the void itself. The Syndicate ship fired, but its blasts shattered against the storm. Its hull cracked, flames bursting from its sides. Smaller ships broke apart in the wave. The gentle sisters' glow filled the ship, warm and bright. The wild sisters' fire tore across the sky, unstoppable. And in the center of it all stood Duran, the human who had seen beauty where the galaxy had seen weakness. The Syndicate ship turned. Broken, retreating into the dark, they had won. Silence filled the cockpit again. The sisters collapsed, drained but alive. Duran caught them both, holding them steady. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it," the gentle sister smiled faintly. "Safe. Because of you." The wild one, too weak to argue, allowed herself a small, tired grin. "Strange human. Maybe not a fool after all." Duran chuckled. "I'll take that as praise." Later, as the stars drifted by, the three of them sat together. No longer strangers. No longer hunted slaves, the gentle sister whispered. "The galaxy called us worthless," the wild one added. "But you saw us," Duran answered, firm and clear. "I saw your true beauty." For a moment, the freighter was quiet, carrying not just bodies but hope, and far beyond, in the endless dark, the galaxy waited, blind still, not knowing two forgotten sisters and one stubborn human had just changed everything.